Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they pledge you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Kermitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
Hi, Matt. I'm Sam Schultz.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Today we're watching and discussing a whole long list of things that aired between 1975 and 1984.
Real long list.
And you know what? Because we have such a long list of things to get through today, I'm just going to start off today's episode with asking Sam, what did we watch this week?
First, airing December. This is long, guys, so buckle
This is going to be
up.
like half the podcast is just telling you what we watched.
Yeah. We watched 2 whole episodes of Sesame Street, basically. First, airing December 14th, 1975, a German documentary about Sesame Street titled Wissen Sie, wie Ernie wohnt, I think.
Yeah, it's close enough.
I took German in high school. I got a D in it, but I took it. The doc seems to cover a few days of filming Sesame Street, from table read to rehearsals to filming, and the Germans are not concerned at all about keeping up any kind of illusion, so we get to see everything. Like basically full footage under the stage of Jim and Frank performing several skits, Kermit Love putting Big Bird's head on Carol Spinney. I'm not imagining that. That happened, right?
This all happens,
Okay.
yes. These are real things you witnessed.
Jim using Kermit's mouth to hold stuff, which I was just like, this is delightful for some reason.
I also noted those moments when people were just using puppets as gloves.
You see Jim, I think we've seen this before, but you see Jim put Kermit on and just like wiggle his hand, and then it's like, what's up? I'm Kermit now.
Just
that was like,
comes alive.
holy shit, that was amazing. And yeah, it's amazing even if you don't know German, because I think a lot of what the German guy is doing is just translating what the English is being said. And you also get to see what I think are some early versions of King Plubis and Food from the Land of Gorch being worked on, because the Muppets were doing their SNL stint. Like they were about to do it, so I guess they were probably getting ready for it when the German camera crew was there. King Plubis has like, does he always have like those weird ear boobs?
I was going to say jowls, but you can say ear boobs.
What is a jowl if not an ear boob?
I mean, there's a pretty big distinction, but I like the poetry of what you just said, so I'm just going to let it lie.
Then, from February 10th, 1976, we watched the banned episode of Sesame Street, guest starring Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. David is walking through a powerful windstorm on Sesame Street when he sees a big broom flying right at him. He ducks and very impressively catches it, and immediately the windstorm stops. He starts sweeping up in front of Hooper's store when the Wicked Witch kind of comes out, sneaks up on him, and confronts him, telling him that she needs her broom back and revealing that she can't take it back by force, since I guess the broom has like a spell or like an enchantment on it or something, making it so that you can't pull it away from anyone that possesses it. She's pretty rude to David in the process of asking for her broom back, and he decides that he's not going to give it back until she shows him a little bit of respect and asks nicely. She does not want to do that, so she skulks around, plotting how to get the broom back without being nice. In the process, she makes an enemy of Big Bird, and Oscar falls in love with her. She finally succeeds when she disguises herself as a sweet old lady, basically just disguises herself as Margaret Hamilton, and asks to check out the broom. David is on to her from the start, but he gives her a chance to squeeze out a please, which she does. She gets her broom back, turns back into a witch, and decides that she's got to get her ass out of Sesame Street. However, as she's flying away, she starts hot-dogging it and doing broom tricks, and then drops the broom back on David. Oh, Wicked Witch. I love when she's like, check it out, no hands. She keeps saying fudge, which to me seems like the real
fudge a lot.
That seems like the real reason the episode was banned, because it's like you have Margaret Hamilton saying "oh fuck" in your episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about more of why it was banned when we get back to talking about it. But it's weirder because nowadays, like "oh fudge" is so often used as a replacement for "oh fuck" in TV shows and things.
Yeah.
But it's usually said by younger people. You have
Right.
a 74-year-old woman saying "oh fudge" in the 70s, which is amazing.
From September 14th, 1976, we watched an appearance of the Muppets on The Tonight Show to promote the brand new Muppet Show. Swedish Chef performs a skit that I gotta imagine is kind of like the one that like Chef Omar would do on Sam and Friends.
Well, we saw, I believe, Chef Omar do this sketch on a Mike Douglas show one time. There's a Mike Douglas show where they had a stage off to the right of the set, and Omar was over there like making a salad over there, and it exploded at the end.
Yeah.
We can't go back and watch that one anymore because the Mike Douglas Show episodes have been removed from YouTube.
Boo.
But yeah, I believe we saw a very, very similar sketch with Chef Omar.
Then Johnny talks to Kermit and his new pal Fozzie Bear, and then interviews Jim, and we see a behind-the-scenes clip of Rag Mop, which we have seen previously. Next, from 1977, the audio of a record that you get for being part of the Muppet Show fan club. All the characters kind of just talk and chaos happens. But mostly this is interesting to me because you hear like very early versions of characters like Piggy, and it was striking me how much early Piggy just sounds like Frank. He got way better at the Piggy voice. Then a couple of clips from the Today Show in 1977, both starring Matt's favorite guy, Gene Shalit. The first, from January 12th, is a short interview with Jim about his past on the Today Show, and then Jim and Frank put on Grover and Kermit and goof around for a little bit. The next is from September 8th, and it's a short spot with Kermit and Piggy. They talk about their relationship a little bit, and then it ends with Piggy karate chopping Gene, which is nice. Next, two really short archival clips of a workshop put on by Jim for his employees in January of 1978. Jim, with some aid from Don Celine, talks about puppet construction and finger placement in like a puppet's mouth. It's just two hairy guys bullshitting, basically. Next, we have the audio of a Fisher-Price Talk to Me book called It's the Muppet Show. It's a book with like a little record in the middle of each page. You see the pages being flipped as you're listening to it on the YouTube thing. Not really sure how it worked. Was there like a little thing you'd put on it that would spin?
Well, so it's actually, the thing doesn't spin. It's a little like plastic box, basically about like 4 inches wide by like 2 inches tall, and you'd set it on top of the page and it would spin the record inside of the page. So the little plastic disc inside of the page would spin and the device would stay in place just on top of it, which is probably why it sounds so awful.
Well, yeah. So yeah, that's how it works. This book is pretty much a short, guest-less Muppet Show episode featuring Fozzie's comedy routine, Gonzo doing a stunt, Pigs in Space, Veterinarian's Hospital, all that stuff. Maybe the origin of New Zealand is revealed in this little book.
I believe you mean Mr. Zealand, as
Yes,
Scooter calls
Mr.
him, which was, for some reason, upsetting to me. And he's like, sorry, Mr. Zealand. And I'm like, who's that?
His
Mr. Zealand's
last
his
name
father.
is Zealand. Is a strange thing to grapple with. And also, as far as Muppet Show episodes go, this is actually a pretty good one, I thought. Now, it's August 18th, 1980, and Frank Oz is on the Today Show, being interviewed by who else but Gene Shalit, the only person allowed to interview Muppets. Gene pressures Frank into doing some voices puppet-free, which made me very uncomfortable for some reason. I think made Frank a little bit uncomfortable, too. And then Frank talks about Miss Piggy and how great she is and how he came up with her character.
It's worth noting that a lot of these Today Show clips that we're watching are extremely short, and were probably, 8 to 10 minute segments they did actually on the Today Show. But the clips we have from this come from a special that aired in 2000 called Time and Again, that they aired on like NBC News. And it shared like a retrospective of Jim Henson's career and shared all the clips they had in their archives from his visits to the Today Show and their other programs. So these are edited down from appearances. And so that's all we have available to watch is these like 2-minute long segments from probably what was a 10-minute long thing. So there's even more uncomfortable moments probably of Gene Shalit asking Frank Oz to talk to himself between Grover and Cookie Monster.
So if you're an intern at the Today Show, then steal some clips. Come on, please. Next up, it's 1981, and Roberta Jimenez, Henson Associates merchandise manager, wants to show you how to start a Muppet Stuff boutique in your department store. Roberta is like, the Muppets are really cool and famous, kids love them, and our merch is out of sight. Then Beaker comes out and shows off some merch with her. She talks about the upcoming movie Great Muppet Caper, and then Sweetums shows up and yells some stuff. I don't remember what he yells though, but hell, it made me want to start a Muppet Stuff boutique, and I don't even really know what that means to start a Muppet Stuff boutique.
Yeah, I assume the people who would be receiving this tape probably knew what to do with it and what this all meant. But
Yeah.
I was definitely a little bit confused because I assumed this was just promoting the store at first. And then they were like trying to get us to do something. And I'm like, I don't know what you want from me, Roberta.
Yeah, I think it's like, when I think of boutique in this sense, I think it's like you're walking through Macy's and you walk by a wall where it says, it's the Muppets with a bunch of shelves of dolls.
I think that's exactly what it is. It is just those little like sections that are branded to a specific thing within a larger department store.
November 13th, 1981, the crew of the SS Schweintrek records some messages for the crew of the Space Shuttle Columbia. One is just sort of a, hey, what's up, welcome to space message, and the other is a congrats, you're about to land your spaceship message. From 1982, a couple of things from the Dark Crystal, archival footage of Jim putting on a Skeksis costume and then being very delighted by the little hand mechanism in it, and a press kit about the Dark Crystal and the displays of the sets and puppets in the Lincoln Center. Then, on November 23rd, 1983, Jack Parr was on David Letterman and takes him back to the closet in the Rockefeller Center where Jim and company decorated those pipes way back in 1964. Jack also says it's the first time they've been seen in like 20 years, and thankfully no one tells him that 3 years previous, Jim had been on the Today Show to talk about them. But it's still really sweet, even if you didn't watch that episode of the Today Show.
Yeah, it was one of those things where watching this, it's very sweet because he acts like these things, he's just reminded everyone that they exist. And I completely forgot the order of operations here because we're going back and watching some things, and I took him at his word at first that this must be the first time, and like this was then NBC decided to highlight them and talk about them more. But no, you're right, Jim was already on the Today Show talking about
I think we
these
saw
a
that
few
clip
years before.
too, maybe, didn't we?
We watched that one.
Okay, so Jack, God love you. Fall 1980, and also David Letterman, thank you for not saying. I know about this.
Yeah.
Fall 1983, Jim is on the CBC talking about his kids working with him, the difficulties of having a family when you're so busy, and Fraggle Rock. He also drops a mention of the upcoming Muppets Take Manhattan and alludes to Labyrinth, which will come out in a couple of years. I don't really know. Then also from 1983, we see Gonzo do a commercial for The Muppet Show on Channel 10 Australia, wherein he reads a message from Kermit that says, watch The Muppet Show. And I'd also say Gonzo is very notably Boober-like here, in my opinion. He's kind of like, oh, that's no fun. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is very true. And maybe that's just because Dave was doing Boober a lot
Deep into
more around
Boober
this
at the
time.
moment. Then from 1983, also a look at the Art of the Muppets exhibit. The really interesting part, to me at least, was that they show off a display of Junior Gorg that has cutaways that show off like how somebody fits inside and the construction, all the cotton in his big old butt, and like the mechanics of how his face works. Oh, and then from 1984, a clip for the pitch for Star Boppers. So Cosmo Bopper, the captain of the spaceship Star Bopper, tells you about the show Star Boppers, while the rest of the crew screams at him from off screen to do a better job at explaining the show Star Boppers. Cosmo looks like a space Fraggle. His eyebrow puppetry is notably amazing, I thought. How do they do that?
I mean, they probably got some mechanics in there and some audio and animatronic kind of things.
Also from 1984, a commercial for the Natural Wildlife Federation in which Kermit and Robin talk about the importance of protecting nature. Robin is in his cute little frog scout uniform, and honestly, it's nice to see him. I love Robin. As you know from the show, I've turned around fully. And finally, a couple ads for Swimathon, which I guess is like walkathon, but for swimming, and it's to raise money for swimming. Scooter apparently loves swimming and wants to be just like his Olympic heroes, Dara Torres and Peter Roca, and he helps them tell you about the Swimathon. And Scooter also looks much like Robin looked cute. Scooter looks incredibly cute in his little trunks and goggles. And Dana Torres goes, no. Do you remember that part? When he says, are you related to Kermit? She's like, no.
Well, I think your impression of her making her sound more like a witch than she does. I think it comes across as just someone who is not an actor because Dara Torres is an Olympic swimmer, not an actor. And so she's like, no. But yeah, we watched a lot this week. And obviously some of that, there's not a ton to say about Swimathon PSAs. But
I just think it's funny that they're raising money for swimming when like walkathon is like for cancer and stuff, and Swimathon is like just putting it back into where it came from.
Well, the first thing we watched is the German documentary, which translates to Where Does Ernie Live? But yeah, this documentary is, 90% German, I would say. But that does not matter if you don't speak German and you want to watch this documentary, because it is definitely worth watching. There's a lot of fun stuff in here.
I think what you're missing also is just him saying, like, this is Jim Henson. He's the guy.
Yeah, I can't
guy.
imagine there's a ton of context being added that you don't just pick up from watching, other than maybe who some people are in some of the scenes, because there aren't like lower third labels or anything of who is who. Jim isn't always saying, hey, you, by name, come over here. So we have more context because we have seen a lot of these people before and know who they are and what they're doing. But if you're just watching this for the first time and don't know that, you might be a little bit more confused than we are.
It would be great if there had been an English version of this, because it's amazing.
Yeah, no, this is a great documentary and one of the, best behind the scenes things we've seen so far, as far as like giving you a real view into the inner workings of the Muppets. There is something completely non-Muppety that I wanted to bring up just because I thought it was super cool. Okay. At the beginning of this documentary, they do a montage of children just playing at like a playground.
I know exactly what you're gonna say. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, there's a montage of kids just playing at a playground, and there's this one kid who's on the swings, and he's just swinging. And there's like city parks in New York where like there's chain link fences around the parks and everything, and the film crew is on the other side of the chain link fence. This kid is swinging on the swing set, jumps off like cool kids do off the swing set, and then just grabs on Spider-Man style to the chain link fence.
Just like Spider-Man.
Like
it's
he
so
just
cool.
No hesitation. He does this all the time. It's very clear because he just jumps off, grabs on, and looks at the camera like, yeah, I just fucking did that.
You like can't even really. It happens so fast you don't even know what's happening, and then all of a sudden he's clinging to the fence, and you're like, "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen a child do by a long shot."
And he's like 4 feet, 5 feet up in the air too, because he just grabs onto the fence, and he's like, "I live here now."
Did you start picturing like? I don't know why it was also so notable to me that it seemed like he was so comfortable doing this. And then I started picturing myself doing this and just being like, oh.
You just face
like
plant
somehow
into
falling
the fence.
slow motion, but also hurting myself extremely badly.
Sliding down the fence with your face.
Yeah. Like my fingers being cut off by the fence thing.
But yeah, it was one of those weirdly impressive things where I was like, oh, wow, yeah, no, he clearly does this all the time and saw his moment to shine when he was finally on camera doing it.
Yeah. When people walk by a camera and they like look at it the whole time, I'm always just like, hey, I do the same thing. That's your one shot for people to be talking about you in like 30 years because you're like the guy who was like, oh, camera, you got to take that shot when you can.
Yeah, because it's somewhere out there in New York right now, there's like a 50-year-old man who can talk about the fact that one time he jumped off a swing and grabbed onto a fence real cool.
For a German documentary. But he probably didn't even know that part.
No.
No way.
I don't think he signed any forms.
He's like, I saw a bunch of weird German guys, and I blew their minds.
But the actual documentary opens up with some great behind-the-scenes shots of setting up for a shoot day, where they're painting Big Bird footprints on the street, setting up lights. This is mostly behind the scenes of episode 833 of Sesame Street, which is a season 7 episode. And yeah, we get to see Carol Spinney and Kermit Love getting Carol Spinney.
I love that little moment where he puts the head on Big Bird and he's like, hey, Big Bird, what's up? And then Big Bird's like, let's win another. That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, at one point, Big Bird also says, Guten Morgen, because they all know the German film crew is around today.
They mention that they're German multiple times, which I think is hilarious. Also, I love the way that this documentary is structured in a way where there's no like interviews to the camera, right? I don't think there are.
No, I don't think
Maybe
so.
Jim talks to him at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think Jim might have a small moment where he's talking, but I think most of that is also Jim on the phone or he's practicing for things. So we see a lot of like in the moment.
It's all just like
cinema verite. Is that one of the things?
Maybe.
One of those film school words we learned. There is, I do want to note for anyone going to watch this, it's kind of easy to miss, but it is there in case this would be, something you want a warning about. John Stone briefly drops the R word when talking to Carol Spinney.
He does?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I think like the context, the era, the acceptance of that word, it was a different time, but still obviously not a fun word to hear if you are not expecting it.
I did get scared every time he was on camera because I thought
he seems like a man who would drop some words.
Yeah.
There's some things in this documentary that Sesame Street would not allow to be put in a documentary today. But then an interesting thing happens around 5 minutes into this documentary. We go to the Muppets and Henson Associates building.
Hell yeah.
And from here on out, it becomes almost entirely about Jim and the puppets and a lot less about the rest of the Sesame crew. Like, we get to see some cool moments with the rest of the Sesame crew.
Right.
But it definitely shifts gears into, hey, this guy is Jim Henson. Let's spend most of our time with him.
Yeah, it's like following him through his part of the process of the show. You're right. I do miss like in like the big chunk of it. I like at the beginning when they're showing like Luis, like his head coming off and they have like the blue hood on him and stuff. And that is definitely missing towards the end.
But when we meet up with Jim, he's sitting at his desk sketching out a character.
I laughed when I saw what he was sketching. It's just like, all right.
Just a big beardy guy.
Yeah.
But he's also practicing his hand lip sync for a sketch that they would do that we get to see them rehearsing later on. We do not actually see when they did the sketch itself, but they will go on to do this sketch with Judy Collins in episode 864 of Sesame Street. It's a song without a reason. And the character he's sketching, we get to see the puppet version later on in this documentary that looks pretty close to what he drew. Right. But in the actual Judy Collins sketch, it's just like the fat blue Mr. Johnson puppet with a beard on him. Like they
Weird. What the heck?
Forego the idea of that guy. And so I'm not entirely sure. I don't think they did this twice on Sesame Street. I think they only did it the one time with Judy Collins. But it's weird that like we see him designing a puppet, we see them build the puppet, we see them rehearse with that puppet, and then when they actually did it, they have a completely different puppet.
Maybe he was just pretending for the Germans. He was just like showing them more
but
of the process. Then, yeah, but they just stick on his beard with tape. You know? Then when they leave, he's like, I don't give a shit about this beardy guy. That was for the Germans.
But we see him get called away to go and check in the puppet shop, where we get to see a familiar face who was not yet really a familiar face.
Yeah.
Because we see Dave Goles hanging out in the shop working on some Gorch Muppets.
Yeah,
and this is
just a little puppet building henchman.
This is pre-Gonzo. This is a few months before they would head on over to London and start making the Muppet Show. But we also see John Lovelady and Raleigh Crewson hanging out in the puppet making workshop. John Lovelady gets the most like featured role. He's the one who's really like interacting with Jim the most when showing like what they can do with some of these puppets. But we get to see a delightful, is it Vaz? The Land of Gorch sexy boob Muppet.
Oh, yeah. Vash, maybe?
Vash, I think maybe is how you say that. But there's like a
I never forget a sexy boob Muppet.
There's like a proto version of her that like seems like really like the prototype because it's got like just like two little like plastic balls with netting where her boobs will eventually be. And just like this weird like sculpt of what will become Vash. But we also see a little brief glimpse of Yorick's head in like a Prairie Dawn wig and dress, like on one of the desks. Like we just see Yorick standing there in drag that I'm assuming was just the puppet makers setting that up for fun.
Huh?
I don't think they were actually using Yorick in drag for any puppet shows at that time.
That's cool. Matt, you got a great eye. You only see that Vash for like a millisecond.
Again, the boobs were there. Sam, I got distracted by a booby Muppet. But a lot of this takes place in the fall of 1975, like I said, a few months before they were filming The Muppet Show. And we get to see them try out some different puppets throughout this, trying out what works, what doesn't. They take out one of the hot pink little anything Muppets, which is like the Prairie Dawn pattern, and try out to see what works, where should the eyes go, kind of thing.
They turn it into a frog instantly. Very cool. They have like a sticker sheet of eyeballs. Yeah,
we see them a couple times changing pupils out pretty quickly on things just to get a different personality. And it's fascinating to watch because I do think they're obviously putting on a little bit of a performance for the cameras here with,
Right.
well, Jim's going to come in and save the day and fix this puppet, which I'm sure wasn't happening with every single puppet. But it's nice to see a little bit behind the scenes there.
It reminds me of when the dentist comes in after the person cleans your teeth and they're like, looks great.
Yeah.
I'm the dentist. And you're like, okay, you're the dentist, I guess.
Yeah. You're going to poke
Jim's
the same tooth they
Muppet
just
dentist.
poked? Okay, if that's necessary. But we also get to see Don, Celine, and Jim working on some Gorch puppets. And we get to see Jim pretty much create the food puppet that will go down, to live on for generations through
the most
Muppets.
famous Muppet of all time.
And this is when Don is making Plubis, definitely an early version of Plubis.
But they're not too far out from the show, are they?
No, it feels like they'd be pretty close at this point because I think it's definitely the fall of that same year when they are doing it. So it seems like there was a pretty quick turnaround on some of these Gorch puppets.
They've been procrastinating, maybe.
But like wild to put yourself in the head of like, okay, they're getting ready to do some Sesame Street things while also in the background, they're just about to start Saturday Night Live and the Muppet Show.
Yeah. That's probably
very
so fun.
soon. But getting back to Sesame Street, we get to see Carol Spinney getting in position for an Oscar performance and rehearsing with Maria for a tin can bit. And then we get to see Maria and Luis doing a taped segment. And this is the point where Emilio Delgado is wearing a blue screen hood for part of this because his head disappears during this segment. And this is one of the other moments where I've been like, they wouldn't allow this in a documentary today. Because when they put the hood on him, they start joking about an execution.
Yeah, do you want a cigarette? What are your last words?
Well, he says, do you want your last cigarette? And he's like, well, I don't smoke, so give me my first.
Good save, Luis.
Yeah. But yeah, I figured the execution jokes maybe wouldn't make it into a Sesame Workshop documentary these days. We cut back to the workshop, and Jim and Frank are practicing a little bit between Plubis and food, where Plubis is starting to eat food, and food is enjoying it maybe a little bit more than Jim would like.
Nasty. Yeah, Jim's like, that's terrible. Doesn't he say that's terrible?
There's a couple of moments in this where we get to see that maybe behind the scenes, Frank wasn't always the most appropriate one. There's even one that's actually edited out a little bit when they ask for it to be. But in this one, as food is getting eaten, Frank's just sort of like, yes, to the left, higher, lower, lower. And then we get to see Raleigh Cruson pull Ernie out of a filing cabinet.
Yeah, I'm watching that right now.
It seemed so impersonal. Just like,
oh man,
yeah,
you gotta keep him somewhere.
I guess. I just don't like the idea of Ernie sleeping in a cabinet like he's in a morgue. And then we have a lovely table read, a little circle thing happening where Jim, Jerry, Frank, and Richard are all trying to find their voices for the upcoming musical number that they're rehearsing for Sesame Street. And the best thing about this documentary is how you just get to see these guys having a lot of fun with each other.
This looks like so much fucking fun. Everybody's just like doing their little silly task, or like the camera guys are like pulling big levers and stuff. It's like, wow, these guys all know what they're doing. It's so cool.
Yeah, somebody who shows up a lot throughout this is Jimmy Baylor, who was a stage manager on Sesame Street. And
he's got a great shirt, first of all.
He's got some great outfits throughout this, but also I love that there's moments when he gets to like play with them, like he's sitting in the circle figuring things out. And then there's other moments where he clearly does not have time for their shit, which is like what a good stage manager would do, where they're all messing around, and he's like, all right, roll. All right. Let's do this. Like, please shut up. We need to actually record this show.
Yeah.
And gotta say, Jerry Nelson's at like peak beard.
His beard is amazing. It's like a part of his, it's a part of his body, but it is like perfect.
It's a Grizzly Adams beard is what it is. It's like full on Grizzly Adams. There's like blonde and brown and gray mixed in. It's like nicely combed. It looks like he went in like to a salon because he's like, I'm going to be in this German documentary. Make my beard look amazing.
Yeah, and I need to wear my finest little hat as well. My finest denim hat. But it's so cool to see the voices come out of his little, like you can't even see his mouth. He's just like,
especially when he's doing the little girl princess voice. But first we have some rehearsal footage of Bert and Ernie rehearsing a segment where, it's a famous segment where they're trying to go to sleep and Ernie is keeping Bert up. That old format. And this one, Ernie is trying to sing a lullaby to himself to go to sleep, but is obviously keeping Bert awake. And this is the moment when we're panning in on this shot. The German narrator is talking, so you can't entirely hear what Bert and Ernie are saying.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do cut to them and you can hear, the first things they're saying is Ernie is telling the camera crew, like, no, cut that out, don't do that. He's not actually sacrilegious.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, what did
he
Bert
say?
just say? And so I tried to scroll back and see if you could hear anything underneath the German, because you can hear them talking a little bit.
Right.
Interestingly, it's audio from later on in that segment that they dubbed over. So I think they did edit out whatever Frank was saying just enough so that you don't hear whatever sacrilegious things Bert was saying.
To send him a letter that says, you can't have Bert quoting The Exorcist. I'm sorry.
But this was another moment where you just get to see Jim and Frank having a hell of a lot of fun, messing around with each other. And I think that's what's nice to see, is that even when they're gently correcting each other or saying like, oh, hey, you're not on camera, or hey, you're doing this, it all comes across as very lighthearted and fun.
Yeah, and just thinking about like how this is what they got to do for decades and decades, and they just got better and better at it.
Maybe a bold stance here. I miss this old Grover puppet. Grover looked so much better back in the 70s than he does now. His head is too narrow and too long, and he's got back then he had this old beach ball head, and I love Grover so much that like I really prefer this old, really round-headed Grover.
He looks the same to me, Matt, I gotta say.
He's just so narrow now. It looks like it's like he lost so much weight that I can see his skull in there.
Grover and Kermit is like my favorite duo. I love that the only person that Kermit really has like actual disdain for is Grover.
And we get to see a couple of different segments between the two of them. The first one is Kermit and Grover rehearsing the salesman segment, where Grover is trying to sell the weather to him, which we also get to see the making of that sketch later on. This is old
Man, when they dump that
Kermit.
snow, and then there's a part where he makes the snow, and then immediately they're like, oh, we didn't do that quite right. It's like, how are you going to get all that snow off of them? But they do. I guess they just...
It's interesting that they start going again, and you can still see a couple of snowflakes dropping a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though it's not supposed to be snowing again, and they're probably just like, yeah, the resolution on these cameras is so low that no one's going to see that snowflake falling.
I guess that's true. You had like, they probably just weren't even thinking like, you'll see every pixel in 4K.
Yeah. But we get to see Kermit's apartment set, which is pretty much just the top half of an apartment, because obviously they don't need legs on the chairs or the couch or the bottom of a fireplace. You just need the part that the camera's actually going to see.
Oh, it bothers me kind of that Kermit's apartment is so furnished and Bert and Ernie's apartment has nothing in it. You know what I mean?
They have some chairs and other things.
His just is like laid out, but theirs is like, I just picture them like, they have to sit on the floor. They don't have a table.
Yeah, they're a bit more,
sink.
I think, of the like college roommates who don't know how to furnish
Kermit's
anything.
rich.
Yeah. Kermit's got that, movie money, and I guess at this point he doesn't yet. But he's made some good investments, maybe.
He started this whole process of getting rich just so he could move away from Grover.
Yeah. This guy who was kind of my friend, but he's getting more and more obnoxious every time I see him.
Yeah.
I have to find a way to get rid of this guy.
He's getting involved in a lot of MLMs. And he's coming over to try to sell me stuff all the time.
We get to see them putting together some puppets for the sketch that we have previously watched, where a princess is trying to pick out her new prince, and Kermit is there for a Sesame Street news flash. Jane Henson is there puppeteering some puppets.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah, she's got a couple puppets. Everyone seems to have two puppets on their hands. And interestingly, she's not doing any of the voices for her characters. Frank does the voice of one of her characters, but she is puppeteering as Frank does the voice. But this is the moment when we get to see both Jim and Jerry use their puppets as if they're just regular hands with no puppets on them. As they pick up items, we get to see Jim grab Kermit's microphone to like reposition it, and it's just Kermit biting on the microphone essentially. And then Jerry Nelson uses the princess character to hold his microphone headband thing and put his hat on, and it's just as if the princess is biting onto his hat while he's putting it on.
That one's less shocking because it's just a anything Muppet, you know?
See, that
But
one
the
got me
Kermit
more
one-
because it was just, I think it's because it's so prolonged and it's also so like utilitarian and just like, yes, this is not a puppet right now. This is just a glove that I'm using to put my hat on.
But he's Kermit the damn frog.
It
He
is-
can't have a
yeah.
microphone in his mouth.
Well, we see a similar moment when after Jim gets rained on in the weather sketch where he just like pulls off this wet Kermit puppet and hands it off to Raleigh Crewson, who's just like, wet frog, and walks
Yeah.
away with just like a slumped over Kermit. Another
Yeah.
thing that probably wouldn't make it in a Sesame Street documentary these days is just like a
Yeah.
wet, sloppy puppet.
Or there's a part where he's like, doesn't have Kermit all the way on, and Kermit's head is just like bobbling like lifelessly. And that's when he pulls on the Kermit and is like, I'm alive now.
I found it really interesting to see Jerry Nelson has two puppets on his hands while he's doing the princess sketch. But he's doing the princess and he's doing one of the background guys who's trying to be the prince. And so he's got his
Yeah.
arms spread so wide doing these two separate characters. It's extremely impressive, and you would never know how impressive without seeing below the frame.
Why don't they just get another guy to do it?
Great question. Because one has to walk off of the set, and while the
Yeah.
princess stays up here. And you just see Jerry Nelson like stretching out almost to his full wingspan to perform these two separate puppets. We get to see some sweet moments of Muppets interacting with kids who are visiting the set. Mostly the Count gets to interact with some kids who are a little unsure about him, I think.
He's a little scary.
But there are some
And
kids
there's
who...
a big beardy guy behind him as well.
And then we get to see a delightful segment, again, of Grover being obnoxious to Kermit. This time they're talking about heavy and light. This is when Grover is trying to carry a piano. It's just delightful. I don't even know what to say about it other than seeing Richard Hunt and Frank Oz perform Grover carrying that piano across the stage. Utterly delightful.
For me, the thrill of my life was getting to see Frank do the Hey Froggy Baby thing from below, too.
Yeah.
Just getting to see him really belt it out.
And the last part of this documentary is just watching the filming of the earlier rehearsed Ernie and Bert scene where they're lying in bed and Ernie just keeps being super obnoxious to Bert.
This is great. This is like one of the most exciting things we watched, I think. I wish there was so much more of this footage, and I'm sure there probably is somewhere.
Yeah, and a lot of this is similar to what we see in Street Gang as well. But there's something about the looseness of this and just, again, like letting things sort of happen that is not how Street Gang is structured. That is just nice to be a fly on the wall.
Just to see like the eyes get stuck on the puppets and everybody just working.
I totally agree. One of the best things we've watched as far as behind the scenes footage goes, and it just makes me want more.
Did this recently get added onto YouTube? Is that why we didn't watch it the first time through?
I believe so. I think I think it got
5 months ago, I guess it says.
Yeah, like this copy was uploaded about 5 months ago, and I don't remember when it was unearthed, but it is not something that came up in my list making when we were originally going through 1975.
I'd be really interested to see the same thing with the Muppet Show because Sesame Street does seem a little like more loose and fun. And I wonder if the Muppet Show could be like a little bit more, because they were trying more technical stuff in the Muppet Show for one thing, I think, but also if it was more tense or if it was equally as fun.
I mean, we got a lot of that in Of Muppets and Men, but not, again, quite as...
Not as unvarnished as
right.
this really, though.
We've got to get a German crew in there to show us what the Muppet Show's all
really-
about.
They bring out the realism.
Then we watched the February 10th, 1976 episode of Sesame Street, episode 847, the banned Wicked Witch episode. This episode has a whole page on Muppet Wiki devoted to the response to this episode because it was banned. This one also recently got posted on the internet, which is why we didn't talk about it originally. From everything I've read, it seems like there was a few really loud people when this came out. And it's not even that kids necessarily were too upset by it, but parents were upset for a number of different reasons.
Huh. Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, it said, so it says typical responses included parents concerned that their children were afraid and now refused to watch the show. And so they held some test screenings after this to be like, okay, let's do some actual studies to see if kids hate this thing. And, turns out a few kids were scared, but not every kid was terrified by this. If anything, it seemed like they have the entire memo, like the internal memo from Sesame Street on Muppet Wiki that you can read through. And a lot of the kids are more confused than scared about exactly what the plot is here.
Yeah.
And
fair.
it seems like they basically landed on like, well, because of so many complaints, why don't we just not rerun this episode? And so for a long time, this episode was never anywhere to be found. It was never obviously on HBO Max or any DVD sets or anything. It just kind of disappeared. The interesting thing that I found was that, so there's one letter that came in from Dallas, Texas that said, recently I've noticed a number of programs have had quite a bit dealing with witches, crystal balls, etc. The reason this concerns me is that witches are not make-believe, and they do exist in what is called Satanism and Satan worship. Possibly this fact was overlooked.
Cool.
So there was a number of people who were like, hey, one, my kid is scared of this lady. Please don't put her on the TV. There's a second category of people who are going, hey, witches, Satan, no thank you.
Right.
And then there was a third one, a woman who wrote in because she did not want witches featured at all because of the negative stereotypes that they were putting on witches, and she was herself a witch and was offering to be a consultant if they wanted to add a Wiccan character to Sesame Street.
Okay, now I'm interested.
Like, yeah, here's the first Wiccan Muppet. Take that, Tucker Carlson.
Well, if it happened in 1975, Tucker would be like, this Wiccan Muppet is part of American culture. We need this Wiccan Muppet.
It was annoyingly similar reading through a lot of the letters that are also on Muppet Wiki from parents. The way, the language they use in talking about having the Wicked Witch on Sesame Street is alarmingly similar to a lot of terrible things we see today on Twitter.
On that page, it also says that another viewer suggested that they bring the Wicked Witch back to give the show's characters the opportunity to win her over. That would be fun, too. She's like, okay, I like you guys after all.
My favorite part of reading through the memo, when they did all the studies on the kids, they asked them a bunch of questions about, like, well, why do you think David was mad? Why do you think the witch wanted the broom? Why is this stuff? They asked them, did you think Big Bird was scared? And one kid said, no, he's too big.
Fair enough. He also has hockey sticks like Casey Jones.
Well, he has a hockey stick and a baseball bat. He is ready to...
like Casey Jones.
Well, he has a cricket bat.
He's got everything. Matt obviously didn't have the Casey Jones action figure as a child because he has a hockey stick, a baseball bat, a golf club. He didn't even have a cricket bat in the action figure.
Well, he does in the movie, right?
Yes, he does, because they have the whole cricket back and forth. You got to know what a crumpet is to know what cricket is.
Well, this super spooky episode opens up with the windy day when the broom falls out of the sky onto David. And we get this little like metal guitar riff that kicks in to be like, hey, things are spooky now.
Something scary is going on.
The Wicked Witch is here and yells at David.
She's not scary at all, first of all.
She's
insane.
Not really. I think there's just a couple things in here that I would pinpoint as like, here's the reason why this is a little scary. But for the most part, pretty easygoing.
Uh-huh.
It is the weirdest thing that someone thought to do this.
Just like have her on the show?
Have this woman who played the Wicked Witch when she was 37, almost 40 years before this episode of Sesame Street, decide to go, you know what? This 74-year-old woman now, let's have her reprise this role that she did almost 40 years ago. For some reason.
Is there any background as to why this happened?
Not that I saw.
Like, she lived in New York her whole life. I saw on her wiki page. So maybe somebody just knew her, you know? And she played the witch a lot of other times in her life.
Oh, did she?
She played her on radio. Like she played, quote, the witch. And she would be on radio shows and some other stuff. Like she popped up every now and then.
Okay, yeah. I'm seeing she was on both Sesame Street and the Paul Lynde Halloween special in the same year.
I have watched that Halloween special now that you mention it. It's really bad.
I was gonna say I've heard stories of that one. But the year before this, notably, she was also on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and they did the thing that they wanted to do with Carol Spinney, where they talk about, hey, she ain't a real witch, everybody. Let's break this down and show you what stage makeup is and all this stuff. So, she had recently sort of been in the public eye again as the Wicked Witch for some reason. But I guess, what did you think of the scariness of this episode and the fact that it was seen as this banned, scary, bad thing?
It was only scary in comparison, I guess, to other Sesame Street episodes. And the only, like, remotely scary thing was that there was, like, an antagonist, I guess. Like, she didn't do anything particularly scary. In my opinion, she said she's going to turn David into a basketball, which could be scary, I guess.
Well, I think the scarier one might be that she threatened to turn Big Bird into a feather duster.
Yeah, but Oscar has also threatened to murder Big Bird multiple times.
But Oscar's not magic.
Has pretended to eat him and stuff like that. So...
That's true, but normally not on Sesame Street. That's usually like live shows. Yeah. That's not canonical.
Also, the Count is scarier. The Count is scarier than the Wicked Witch.
He does have mind control abilities when he first is introduced, so yeah.
He hangs out in a castle with spiders and bats and stuff. The Wicked Witch is just like some weirdo. It's like... that's New York, baby. I feel like you'd say that if you passed the Wicked Witch on the street and she was like, I'm going to turn you into a basketball. You'd be like, only in the Big Apple. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you that I don't think there's much reason for this to be banned at all. If anything, what I got from this was, like, David's wrong. Like,
he was being a jerk also.
He takes her broom. It shocks her when she tries to grab it, and he won't give it back to her just because he's saying that she's not showing him dignity and respect when he's literally stealing her broom.
Yeah.
Like, he found her lost item and won't give it back to her, which is a really weird message for Sesame Street to be like, yeah, if you find, your friend's toy, you don't have to give it back to them if they're mean to you.
Make them say please first, even though
it's their thing.
Yeah, she's so lightly rude to him at the beginning. Like, if at the beginning she, like, kicked him in the shins or something and been like, give that to me.
Well, that's the thing, too, is, like, he acts like the Wicked Witch was, like, almost really, like, dehumanizing him. Because he even says later on, like, she won't get this back until she treats me with some respect, and she treats me like a human. And I'm like, what did she do that made you think this is how horrible she is? Because we didn't see any evidence of that. And you're just coming across like a jerk who won't go give this old lady her broom back.
Yeah, and compared to what she has done, this ain't nothing. She lit the Scarecrow on freaking fire, man.
But then we're back in Mr. Hooper's store, and Maria is hanging out being like, where'd you get this broom? And David tells her, and she immediately is like, you should give this back. Maria throughout this whole episode is on the right side of history here.
By the end, she's just like, I don't care anymore. I can't be part of this.
But I think there's also a moment that might be a little bit of a sinister intent behind Maria's actions in this episode, because the witch appears in Mr. Hooper's store and is like, give me my broom. And Maria's like, hey, David, could I have some water? Has Maria seen The Wizard of Oz and knows that in order to kill a witch, you need some water?
Oh. She's going to murder the witch.
I'm just saying, as soon as the witch appears, she asks for a glass of water. But instead of getting her water, the witch gives her some water. Thankfully, she does pop outside real quick first because she doesn't want to get rain on her.
Right. Okay.
But she makes it rain inside the building to annoy Maria and David. And some children who are just kind of hanging out throughout this episode and don't really do much.
They're not scared of the witch, are they?
They don't seem very scared.
No. That should be all the evidence you need.
Maria, once again, we see her suggesting to David, hey, just give the broom back. And still David's like, nah, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
That's when Big Bird shows up and decides to help David fight off the witch.
Yep, I wrote, here comes Big Bird to mess everything up.
Well, and he, at first, doesn't believe David that the Wicked Witch is there.
Yeah, that's true.
But when he decides to actually help and be brave, the first thing he says is, I guess I'll need a stick to fight off a witch.
Yeah, Big Bird is like, but he's like 10 times braver than he's ever been in his entire life.
Yeah. And yeah, this is when Big Bird has the hockey stick and the baseball bat in his hands.
He's like standing outside of Hooper's store, just like a sentinel. It's so cool.
But I also don't know why Big Bird doesn't want her to have the broom. He seems very determined, though, to not
He's
let her
just
have
going to
it.
do whatever David says, you know?
I guess so.
I want to know why she wants to turn him into a basketball. Like, did Margaret Hamilton say, I'm going to turn you into a basketball? It's such a weird thing to threaten somebody with.
It is. I like the feather duster makes sense.
Yeah.
Like turning a human into a basketball isn't like a thing.
No.
So,
you know, the implications are chilling, but.
yeah, I wouldn't want to be a
She
basketball.
could
I
have
saw
said,
what
like,
happened to Michael Jordan in Space Jam.
oh, yeah, you're right. She could have
Unpleasant.
said, I'm going to turn you into like a worm or something, you know?
Or a frog or whatever.
Anything.
Something more witch-like.
What if David had turned into a little frog puppet? That would have been really cool.
We see a nice little duo that we don't get very often of Cookie Monster and Ernie in this
Yeah.
episode. Cookie Monster has a machine that is a cookie counter that lets him point a rod at a box and it counts how many cookies are in the box.
Great. My favorite part of this was that he calls Cookie Monster CM.
I didn't even notice that.
They go way back. They're buddies. It is an interesting duo because they are both the dumbasses, you know? You can't have a
Yeah, they're
dumbass
usually the
and a
ones kind of
dumbass.
annoying the other people.
Uh-huh.
So seeing Ernie get to kind of be the straight man in this equation.
Yeah, the
is a
hierarchy
fun-
of annoyingness is like Cookie Monster. I bet Grover's more annoying than Cookie Monster.
Yes, for sure.
He's the top annoying one.
And then Oscar the Grouch falls in love with the Wicked Witch. And it's a really brief thing that I kind of wish had gone on longer.
Yeah, if he had allied himself with her.
Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I can help you. I'll convince David to give me the broom. But instead we just get to see him say, you've got to be the most beautiful person I've ever seen.
Then that's that.
Well, because that's when she decides to disguise herself as just
Oh,
regular
right.
Margaret Hamilton to sneak in to Mr. Hooper's store.
I really like this part because when she turns herself into a nice old lady, she's like having such a hard time doing the nice old lady voice, you know, and she laughs. She's like, I mean, ha ha ha.
Yes, I like her fake, probably more real voice
Yeah,
that she's trying to put
just being
on.
herself.
And as Sam said, there's the slight trickery where all she has to do is apparently say please, which could have been, I think, more clearly laid out by David earlier.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's not like he's actually won her over. He knows what's happening.
Right.
Like, it's not like the victory is not a real victory, David, is what I'm saying.
Well, he's humiliating someone else. So in that case,
I
if that's
guess,
what he
but that was not
wants.
his goal.
Could have been though.
It's not his stated goal.
He's acting quite strangely this entire time. He's on a power trip.
But some of the only other Muppety things in this episode are we get to see a Roosevelt Franklin sketch that's pretty brief.
My theory with Roosevelt Franklin, because he goes and teaches those classes, you know? Why is he teaching the class? I think he's like B.B. Bluff and he owns the school.
Ooh.
And that's why it's named Roosevelt Franklin Elementary School. Somebody bought, like his dad bought the school, and now he's
Well,
like...
that's some deep Doug lore that you're getting into now.
That's the new Doug. That's not even
I
the
know,
old
that's what's
Doug.
worse.
Yeah.
That's the
That is brand
ABC
spanking
Saturday
new
Morning
Doug.
Doug.
But yeah, that's my new headcanon for Roosevelt Franklin and why the school is named after him and why he just gets to do whatever he wants.
Because rich dad bought the school.
Or he has
Shaped it like
powers
his
like
head.
that kid in the Twilight Zone, you know?
That's the only two options.
Yeah. And then there was a Here Is Your Life with Guy Smiley, which was depraved in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a hero's of your life for a loaf of bread who thinks she's there to provide slices
Yeah.
of herself for a
We
club sandwich.
ordered her because we said we wanted a club sandwich. And
Yeah.
she's just like, okay, here I come.
She's like, how many slices do you want?
Yeah.
But instead, her best friends show up who became French toast and a PB&J sandwich.
Her best friends who were previously loaves of bread, and Guy Smiley's like, we found them. They got sliced up into sandwiches.
And they're about to be eaten. Thank God we found them now.
Yeah.
And the episode ends with Big Bird saying that he was actually happy the witch visited because it was exciting. It's been a good day on Sesame Street. I got to almost beat an old woman with a hockey stick.
Yeah. Really seeing him with that baseball bat and a hockey stick kind of like drives home how big he is. And like,
He's very large. If you saw an 8-foot tall human man walking towards you with a hockey stick and a baseball bat, you would run away.
run away. Yeah.
Next up, September 14th, 1976, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. This would have been like their 15th or 16th appearance on The Tonight Show at
Like
this
really,
point.
actually? That's not
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've only seen like half of those maybe. Around this time that they're promoting The Muppet Show coming out, they've also made some appearances on The Mike Douglas Show and Dinah, the Dinah Shore Show that we weren't able to find. So there's still some stuff from this era that we haven't seen yet. So if anyone tracks it down and can share it with us, that'd be great. But as Sam said, we have seen the rag mop section of this, sort of like the last 5 minutes of this section before. I don't remember why or how or when, but we have talked about that part of this before. But we get to see the Swedish chef making a salad using an actual knife to cut an onion.
Yeah.
And chop up a bunch of stuff.
Some kind
And
of
I was
chopper
really
thing.
afraid that Frank was going to lose a finger.
Yeah. He guess he knows what he's doing, but there was a lot of blades involved in this.
There's more danger in this one sketch than we ever have seen from the Swedish chef so far.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, this is like the real application of the Swedish chef. Because when he's doing skits on the Muppet Show, it's different because it's like a skit. You know, it's like planned out ahead. But this was like the two hands doing kind of improv-y food stuff. Like, this is what he's really supposed to be doing. It worked so much better, I feel like, than other Swedish chef skits.
He even lights an actual match
Yeah.
at one point. He gets real fire.
I thought he was going to get frustrated and take out like a blowtorch, but no. He does the match. It's amazing. I love when he has the celery and he's like letting the olive slide down it. It's just like, to do that with not looking at it and your hands are way above your head, crazy.
It's like the Whose Line Is It Anyway sketches that they used to do, where they'd like bring up a member from the audience and like they would be the hands, or the audience member would be the hands, one of the two.
Right.
And they had to like control them. It always went poorly. So the idea that like they were doing that, and you know, Frank presumably is watching a monitor and is like, okay, so I have to hold up the celery and roll an
And it's
olive
maybe
down
a
it into a
reverse of
salad
what he's
bowl.
looking at too. Like his hand, amazing.
Good job, Frank Oz. But there's a slight pause as Kermit needs time to get ready, as Jim needs to slide his hand out of a chef and into a frog.
Yeah, and Johnny Carson is really bad at like stalling for time. He's just like, I'm going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here and wait. And then he
I
just,
think
like,
there was
sits in
just more
silence.
patience back then.
I guess so.
For nothing happening. Like, I think they were just cool with like, yeah, we're just going to sit here a moment. How's everyone doing? We're just waiting for
He's
Kermit
got a
to get
whole
ready.
sidekick to talk to, though. He could just be like, how's it going?
He doesn't really, we don't even
Ed?
see him.
No,
I don't
we
think
just
they
hear
show
him.
Ed this entire
I
time.
don't think they do either.
But Johnny gets to talk with Kermit a little bit about becoming a superstar. Kermit's retelling of the story is basically he sat up one day and said, "Hey, dummy, you can talk."
I really like that origin for him.
Yeah, one day he realized he's a talking
He's a
frog,
talking frog.
and he could be famous.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Johnny asks Kermit about any steady romances in his life, and he mentions a romance with a pig.
Yeah.
And only 2 episodes of The Muppet Show have aired at this point.
So I can't remember what they're like by the end of the first season, but I guess they've filmed a little bit ahead, but they couldn't have filmed all of the Muppet Show yet. Because that's
Well, so
not
we
how it
have,
worked.
there is some flirtation because we have the one where they're singing like the Glee Club and Piggy is like flirting with Kermit.
Right.
So there is definitely flirtation in the first season. But we also have Richard Hunt and Frank Oz like trading off
Yeah.
Piggy. So like Piggy is not an established character at this point, but they had the idea already that there was going to be like a continued flirtation between the two of them.
Right. I thought that was very interesting too. And Kermit brings it up. He's made his own bed in this situation.
Yeah, this is maybe the first time anyone ever asked about Kermit and Piggy's relationship.
Yeah.
And speaking of firsts, we get maybe our first Muppet Hubba Wah?
That was great.
Because
everybody in the audience loved it too.
They love Fozzie Bear, specifically when he's just doing double takes.
The old double skull.
And he pulls out his comedy crutch, which is his wiggly ears.
And people love that too.
Mm-hmm.
He's killing it.
It's just fascinating to watch a crowd meet Fozzie Bear for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, this is a new character. These people have never seen this before.
And
it's
still going to be around for decades and decades.
Well, and it just makes me wish that there was more opportunities and that the world was more open to new Muppets breaking out.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, like, when they introduce new Muppets today, it's almost immediately they're hated.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's just not this kind of big deal where they give a performer a whole new character that they're like, this is your new character. Go forth.
Right.
And we get to see that a bit in Muppets Mayhem, obviously, with a few new characters like Dr. Teeth's parents and Penny.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, Walter is sort of the last attempt at this, and that was over 10 years ago. And I know it's something that both the puppeteers and the old puppeteers want for the new puppeteers, is they want them to be able to move on from just
Those guys must have
having
so many
legacy
ideas
characters.
for new characters they could be, and it just doesn't. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. They just get to do, which Bill Barretta recently talked about on the Tough Pigs Muppets Mayhem Behind the Scenes podcast, that it is sort of a bummer at times when you're just sort of doing an impression. You're just trying to be Jim. You're just trying to be this person, like all of your characters. And so that's why I think he talks a bit about Pepe being like good for him because that's an original character that he got to create.
Yeah. I feel at this point, like, his Dr. Teeth is his own thing too, though.
Yes. I think his Rolf is so good too that I think like those are, it does feel like a separate chapter of those characters.
Then he talks to Jim for a while, and Johnny reveals that he was a ventriloquist, which I feel like maybe we talked about. But also, he's been historically so bad at talking to Kermit. It's like,
But in this, he says he's not. So I guess we take him at his word because he says other people might be uncomfortable working with puppets. I'm not. I used to be a ventriloquist.
One of the weirdest guys to ever talk to Kermit, but okay.
Yeah. Notoriously quite terrible in talking to puppets. Or
Maybe
at least
it was just
feels
that
like
one
he has to
time,
call it out.
you know? That one time
It's
he
at
did
least
bad.
2 appearances we've seen where he's like, I can't believe I'm talking to a frog.
Yeah. This time he was committed to the bit, though.
Yeah. Then next up is the Muppet Show Fan Club record. Again, only available to fan club members. Very brief thing. It's only like 3 minutes long. And it's just sort of, hey, here's all those people you know and love exclusively talking to you.
And then also was like, we're just going to do this in one take. Everybody agree with that? All right, let's go.
Yeah, I feel like I could picture Frank Oz in the booth switching between his voices in one take. And we get Piggy, we get the Electric Mayhem, we get Sam Eagle, who pretty much ends the record abruptly after he decides that chickens should not be in the booth.
Yeah, well, especially glued together chickens, which is kind of gruesome. Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to have a problem necessarily with the glue. It's more of like chickens should not be involved in this process, which is a bold thing for another bird to be mad about.
Yeah. A bird who kind of looks like a chicken. I mean, in Muppet form at least. Not too different. How did you get this? Did you just, like, you send them some money and they send you back a little packet or what?
Yeah, so the fan club was a thing you could sign up for. I don't remember how much it cost, but there's a number of newsletters they would send out. And this was one of those records that's things you could get in magazines. That's like this super thin, flimsy plastic thing.
Punch it out of something.
That works on a record player, but is nowhere near like the actual quality of a vinyl record.
Right. I feel like we lived through the very last days of fan clubs, really. Were you in any fan clubs?
I don't know if I was ever actually in any official fan clubs.
I was in the Goosebumps fan club. I was in the Aquabats fan club.
Wow.
I think there was another one too, but yeah, they just send you stuff every now and then. The Goosebumps one was great. You got some slime, a bookmark. I loved it.
Wow. No, I don't think I ever signed up for any official fan clubs.
You weren't in the Fall Out Boy fan club? You must have been in the Fall Out Boy fan club.
I don't think they had one.
Damn.
Now it's just newsletters. That's all you get from
just an email even too. Not even like a physical newsletter.
Then in January 1977, Jim and Frank appear on the Today Show. What we don't see in this clip is them performing Java, which they did that morning on the Today Show. And this aired in the middle of season 1 of The Muppet Show airing. So I'm guessing this was just sort of a further promotion for that. They discussed that Jim has been on the Today Show 45 times at this point, which is fucking wild.
Crazy.
At first, Gene Shalit keeps calling it his 45th anniversary. And I'm like, he was not here in 1932. The Today Show didn't exist in 1932.
Gene's a wild man. He just says anything that pops into his head, basically.
I mean, yeah, there's no filter on Gene. But there's a couple times where he has asked a question, or I guess Kermit has asked a question, and Gene or Frank, somebody tries to move on, and Jim becomes insistent that Kermit gets to answer the question of how long he's been around.
Yeah, I thought that was okay, though, because it is something that Jim thinks is interesting.
Yes, and you can see him laughing as like, hey, I was going to answer the question you asked me. Let me freaking answer it. And Grover is there as well and is trying not to upstage Kermit and Jim. This is another thing where we get to see Jim, I think, just having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then Jim clearly wants to talk more about hey, I've been coming to the Today Show since the Today Show started. And so he starts asking, where's Hugh Downs? Where's Dave Garroway? Two men who hosted it back in the mid-'60s when Jim was coming on here doing Java in the first place. But Frank has a nice little line as Grover where he's like, Dave Garroway.
How is Jim? Is Frank way younger than Jim? He is, right? Maybe not way younger, but
Yeah, Jim is 8 years older than Frank.
Okay.
So, there's definitely a little bit of a big brother, little brother energy that comes off of them at times.
We also lived through the end of the Today Show being culturally significant. I feel like, at least. I used to watch that show every morning. I used to watch that every morning, though. I liked that show.
Well, yeah, but that's because your parents were probably watching it.
No, it was me.
Oh.
I like that kind of like routine of television, like personalities. Like I loved David Letterman so much when I was a kid. I just loved him being on every night, being like, "Hey, what's up?" Wake up, see your other friends on the morning, be like, "Hey, what's up?" And the news stuff was boring, watching, but it was like sometimes the Muppets would come on, or sometimes somebody would sing and be like, "This is great."
Well, the next Today Show appearance is Kermit and Piggy appearing just before season 2 of the Muppet Show starts to air. They also did a Tonight Show appearance around this time that we haven't found yet, where Kermit sings Happy Feet, Jim discusses the second season of the Muppet Show, they show some pigs in space, and Johnny Carson interviews Link Hogthrob.
Oh, wow. Link.
Yeah. But instead, we get, a brief appearance with Gene Shalit of Kermit and Piggy, where Gene just asks some dumb questions.
I think that when
puns.
Kermit is like, the green room is actually brown. Sometimes they're lying to you on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like some of the funniest ad-libbing that Jim's ever done. Maybe like the funniest.
Yeah. It's another thing where we've talked about this before, where Jim has a really funny idea and nobody else runs with it, and it just falls flat. And I'm like, yes, just let him go.
Funny, maybe he's a morning person. Maybe he's bad at ad-libbing on the night shows because it's like 5 and he's just a little groggy or something. But at like 4 o'clock in the morning, he's like, let's go, baby. I got some funny jokes.
Yeah, I think Jim is just... There's 2 Jims that we get to see. There's like this fun-loving Jim who really wants to improvise and be... it's the same Jim who says "son of a bitch" when he's on Arsenio Hall in 90. And then there's like I want to talk about the fast editing cuts in the cube. And it's like, that's the 2 Jims. And when we get the slightly chaotic Jim is sometimes the most fun Jim, when he's just like, fuck it, let's do this. Yeah, Dr. T's going to talk about sex on the Tonight Show. Then we watched a couple of brief clips from a 201 workshop, it was called. These are just a couple of workshops that the Henson Company would host in New York to, it seems like from these clips, teach a bit of puppetry and critique people's puppets.
Right.
Because
he's tear that one apart in the second clip.
Yeah. Also, big thing to note here, this is about a month before Don Saleen dies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is some of the last, footage of Don Saleen that I think is available for us to see. In the first clip, Jim is talking about trying to get motion and movement, like a real flesh kind of flexibility out of Fleece characters. And the second one, he gets this little foam puppet head handed to him from somebody off screen. And I think it seems like somebody in the shop built this puppet on their own, and Jim is critiquing it to let them know how they can make it better. Right. Most notably, it seems like he wants to be able to get his fingers like further into the lips so he can control the mouth.
I thought that was interesting.
More.
It was like a quarter. They have to be like a quarter of an inch at most from the wall of the puppet mouth or whatever.
Yeah, because it's basically the puppet he's working with has a really thin bottom lip that has about an inch of space between the edge of lip and where Jim's thumb lies.
And that just simply will not do.
No, which makes a lot of sense. You don't have the same manipulation that you have in a Kermit.
Yeah.
But he talks a lot about the responsiveness from the character and really trying to get those subtle movements in there, which, to be fair, yeah, the puppet he's working with is just sort of a foam ball that there's not a lot of natural life in it. So I think the critiques are fair.
This would have been so cool to be at. And also, if he was mean to your puppet, you'd be like, oh, God.
Yeah, whoever designed that puppet, hopefully, was successful enough with the Muppets that didn't scar them for life.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a rough day to come home and just be like, Jim Henson said my puppet sucks.
He hated it.
Then in 1979, we have the It's the Muppet Show Talk to Me book. This is the one we talked about that has a little record built into the pages. You put a little device on top of it, it spins it, it plays it. And the biggest thing about this for me that Sam had, I think Sam said all the same things I probably would have said during his summary of, this is a nice episode of The Muppet Show. But the illustrations in this are wild.
They're so cool. I think they're beautiful.
Oh, I love them, but some of them are just so, what is it called when something's like off character, off model?
Oh, off model. Yeah.
There's a New Zealand one specifically where his head looks so big and square that I'm just like, that's a different man. That is not New Zealand.
And you see their feet so much. You see everybody's whole bodies throughout the whole thing. I think the standout for me was the beginning when Rolf is doing the poem and Scooter's messing it up. I feel like the characterization of Scooter in this book, for some reason, like, they really nailed it. Because he's really just being a little pest, and everybody is like, Scooter, he's the little pest one. I hate that guy.
Yeah, no, it's one of those that's like almost too short. Like, by the time you start to appreciate it, it's over. And so it would be nice if there was like a series of these, but I know they only did one of the Muppet Show. There's some Sesame Street ones out there, but there's only one Muppet Show one.
And I stand by, it's a pretty good episode of the Muppet Show, in my opinion.
They hit all the beats. And then we had the brief appearance of Frank Oz on the Today Show. This is the one where Gene asks him to talk Groverly to him and says, suppose Grover was talking to Cookie Monster.
Don't do that.
And, you know, Frank, I think, does a great job of tolerating Gene Shalit in this.
He doesn't jump across the room and strangle him like you maybe would think he would.
This was right before season 5 of The Muppet Show started airing, so I'm guessing that's what Frank was here to promote. And they talked briefly about Piggy going to the Academy Awards. Doesn't really go anywhere. They talk briefly about where Piggy came from, and Frank says it's just from my warped view of women. And they move on pretty quickly from that as well.
Yeah,
so,
maybe that's for the best.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. This is a pretty brief and pretty shallow conversation between Gene and Frank.
The description of Miss Piggy as she's a lady, and if you don't think so, she'll cut you in half. That's pretty good. I like that little sound clip.
Yeah, it's like the brief descriptions he has where he's talking about tapping into his like femininity that he talked about in the past and like trying to tap into this like scared character is always fine. And there's like those other lines he drops where it's like, this is my warped view of women, where I'm like, let's not necessarily dig deeper into that part because I'm afraid of what's about to come next.
Sure.
And then we finally get to see inside of the Muppet Stuff store. We got a brief glimpse at it in the Henson's Place documentary that we watched, but now Roberto Jimenez is here to give us a deep dive into all this Muppet stuff. She says, this frog is Muppet stuff. This pig is Muppet stuff. It sounds like an alien talking to you about Muppets.
Yeah. She's not the best actor, but that's okay. She's the
that's not her job, really.
Right.
Like, she's the merchandising manager. We talked about during the time of the Muppets Take Manhattan, she's the one who organized the big PR push for them to do all those TV appearances they were doing.
Right.
And so, yeah, this is, you know, again, she's also talking to corporate businesses. This isn't something to be aired on TV, so I think it works for what it is.
Right.
Notably, the Muppet Stuff store, no longer open. It was there from 1980 to 1993. And is now a vegan restaurant location.
I could have gone to the Muppet Stuff store.
You could have.
Damn. I would have spent so much money.
There was a couple in Canada, and then there was one in New York.
Wow.
But yeah, now it's just a vegan restaurant. Sorry, Sam.
I hope there's one single figurine of Kermit in there.
That'd be nice.
I know what this place used to be. Some notable things in this. My Rolf puppet is behind her at one point.
Yeah, that Fisher-Price Rolf puppet that Sam owns and wants to, or I guess did, chomp the nose of constantly as a child.
The other thing is I think that Muppets, some of the best, like Muppets were created for this in a way, but a Muppet like messing up a normal commercial is like peak Muppet to me, where Scooter comes out and Roberta's trying to be like, I'm selling you stuff, and then Beaker's like exploding stuff and spilling stuff and freaking out. I love that.
Yeah, we get brief glimpses of some behind-the-scenes stuff because this is really just like telling you how great the Muppets are as well. And so we get to see Jim winning an Emmy. They show some close-ups of all the other awards he has won.
Yeah.
We see some behind-the-scenes from 60 Minutes of Piggy and Raquel Welch performing together. And this is when the transition happens of Roberta saying, so there's the Muppet stuff you're familiar with. This is the Muppet stuff you can take home. And that's when Beaker hops in to help out. They talk about all the high-quality brands that they work with, and at one point we get to see Beaker playing with a scooter and an animal doll and like acting like they're talking to each other. The funny thing here is that Beaker's scooter impression is just Beaker's voice. But his animal impression is pretty good.
I think a lot about how in, I think it's a Muppets and Men, they talk about Richard doing a bunch of voices and being good at it. It's like, I would like to hear more of that.
Well, my favorite thing is Richard is also Scooter. So
Right.
Richard could have done a perfect
better
Scooter impression,
Yeah.
but he decided that Beaker does not do a good Scooter impression.
No.
But yes, Beaker screws everything up by trying to hold on to everything and show everything off really quickly. There's an amazing Statler and Waldorf puzzle that's just their two old faces on a puzzle.
Just what kids love, old man puzzles.
And then to wrap it up, Sweetums shows up because obviously Richard was already there being Beaker. And they were like,
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, want to get
You
in the
gotta go
Sweetums
do
suit?
this. It's your turn today to go do the commercial. I guess he
Yeah.
kind of seems like he does a lot of commercials if he does the swim-a-thon thing too. There's like a certain level of money. Oh no, this is just for the company. But maybe for the swim-a-thon thing, it's like we can only afford Richard. We can't afford Jim.
Well, I have to imagine, like, no shade to Richard Hunt, but he's also probably a less busy man than
Yes.
Jim Henson or Frank Oz.
Totally.
Who were, at this point, maybe working on the Dark Crystal.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Maybe.
And then it's time for pigs in actual space. Because the after the Columbia Space Shuttle's first trip in April of 1981, NASA asked Jim if the Muppets would like to record wake-up calls that would play for the astronauts on the second shuttle voyage. And so they asked them to do 5 of these. We did not get to hear all 5. But this was the first time in history that a spacecraft was making a return trip to outer space, which is why that's one of the main jokes in this
Right.
batch of things that they're doing.
Okay. I wonder if by day 5 they were like, okay, we get it. Space is
I think people
space.
fucking loved the Muppets back then.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And they talk about how the Columbia has tiles to protect them on re-entry, but the swine trek only has shingles.
I thought that was pretty good.
And we learn, most notably, I think, that the swine trek does not know how to get back down to Earth. They're stuck in space.
They're up there forever. They're doomed.
But it's one of those weird moments where you're just like, yeah, like the Muppets were so big coming off of the Muppet Show that NASA specifically reached out to Jim Henson to be like, hey, would you want to do the wake-up calls for the astronauts on the second ever shuttle launches? Then we get some brief glimpses at the Dark Crystal, both behind the scenes of the actual movie and part of the electronic press kit they put out in some form back then, showing off the museum exhibit for the Dark Crystal. Neither one of these things has a lot going on in there. The first one, especially, is just Jim laughing while he's in his Skeksis
It's
costume.
fun to watch him. It's fun to see the joy on his face as he's like, look at this little hand.
Mm-hmm. But it's just like 45 seconds of Jim just being like, ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
look at my hand. And the other
And
one
then
is
the
really
press
just,
kit really is just like, whatever. Come to the museum. Okay.
it's quite dull. It's just showing
Yeah.
you all the different, like, here is a mystic. Here are the podlings. Here
Yeah.
are the Skeksis.
As somebody who
Come.
writes like ad copy sometimes I watch these things and I'm like, they probably should have done another pass. Like, I feel like there's been multiple Muppet things where it's like, that didn't tell me anything about what this is. It didn't make me excited about it at all. And it was kind of just confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And who is this for? Who is this for? Who are you supposed to show it to?
I don't know. Because it's too long to, like, run on TV. It's not like,
Yeah.
hey, kids, come tell your parents to take you to the Dark Crystal Museum.
Right. It's just some boring guy who's like, we got these. We got the suits. Come see them. If you live in New York or California. Okay.
Well, speaking of somewhat boring guys, on November 23rd, 1983, Jack Parr appeared on Late Night with David Letterman. And
They're not boring.
I think Jack Parr is a little,
Oh, sure.
Boring.
He's just old school.
yeah. He compliments Dave Letterman, though, and says he has a surprise for him. He's actually very nice to him.
Yeah,
He says, like,
he's
this is the
nicest
nicest
young
guy.
man. He loves that guy.
Yeah. Which I was like, young man? But he's like our age. So I felt bad
Yeah.
after I realized I was like, David Letterman, a young man? He's not a young man.
Isn't that
And
crazy though?
Yeah, he's our
At
age
one
hosting
point, he was
freaking Late
our
Night.
age. Yeah.
What are
That
we
wasn't-
doing? We're not hosting Late Night.
Also, when Jack Parr's leading him back to the Muppet Pipes, he says, "This is the hallway Liza Minnelli yelled in." Do you know what he's talking about?
No idea. I think he's just
Okay.
like recounting old times during his show when, here's the dressing rooms. So Liza Minnelli would rehearse out here, maybe. I don't
maybe
really
so.
know. It seems like he's trying to fit in like 20 stories into one hallway walk.
Yeah.
And I just feel like David Letterman's like, dude, we do not have time for this, and I have no idea what you're doing, so let's get to it, please.
Or he was thinking, I know exactly where you're bringing me because I know about these pipes, but I have to pretend like I'm excited about it. I also thought it was so funny when they showed that Tom Snyder poster and it said Tom Cinder. That's so mean.
Yeah, they like blame NBC. They're like, yeah, well, NBC kind of forgets about this guy. Look, they even spell his name wrong.
Yeah.
And when they finally get to the pipe room, Jack says very sweetly, I never won any awards, but I have something that is so touching to me. And then he proceeds to like hype up the pipes like 6 more times before just opening the door and showing the pipes.
Some pipes.
So much so that by the time they open the door and show the pipes, it's like, all right, well, gotta go.
That's true. They don't.
But it is very sweet how much Jack Parr likes those pipes.
Yeah. I love David Letterman. I was such a big Letterman kid. I bet you don't like him, do you?
I don't.
I
like his newer show, the Netflix one where he just talks to people.
I thought his show was so funny.
I was
You can't throw stuff off the roof of a building anymore, you know?
I was, for some reason as a kid, I watched Leno, and I don't really know why.
That's why we're enemies.
Maybe that's why. Because, like, yeah, looking back, I don't enjoy Leno at all, really. But as a kid, that was, I think, just part of because I often watched Conan, so I would watch Leno to get to Conan.
Oh, that's fair, I suppose. You got to remember to change the channel otherwise if you want to watch
Right, yeah, I'm not going to do that because it was usually so late. I'm in bed watching TV in my room, and I put on Leno with the hopes that I can stay awake until Conan comes on.
To watch Conan. Yeah, I walked past the building where Letterman throws stuff off. He used to throw like watermelons and stuff.
Yeah.
When I was in New York, and I was like, this is holy ground. How many watermelons and
there should be a
light
plaque
bulbs
right where that watermelon fell.
There should be.
Then we get a fall 1983 CBC segment with Jim Henson talking about his kids and Fraggle Rock. This is right after Fraggle Rock season 1 had just ended. And he talks about his kids, like, you know, working with them, bouncing ideas off of Lisa and Cheryl, and mentions that Brian is out working on Fraggle Rock right now.
Yeah.
Then the show surprisingly pulls back the camera to reveal that they're sitting in Doc's shop.
That was cool. That was wild.
I did not expect that when they just were like casually having the like over the shoulder conversations. And then it's like, oh, you guys are at Fraggle Rock right now.
Yeah.
And they talk briefly about Jim. Basically, he's saying he always like tries to have one of his kids traveling with him whenever he's traveling, but mentions that family vacations are also really important because it is around this time when him and Jane were like legally separating.
Right.
So I think when maybe asked about family and how you make time for things, it's a little bit of a touchy
Tricky
subject.
Question. Yeah, maybe there's some things you can't really say.
Yeah, you're not gonna be like, oh, actually, I just got a new apartment in New York.
Yeah.
Like.
When the interviewer asked Jim what makes a good kid show, I was like ready to take notes, and Jim was like, I don't know. He was basically just like, quality. Bro, come on.
Yeah, like basically don't sacrifice your ideas.
Yeah.
But he says he's not a perfectionist. He kind of does the like 80% rule kind of thing of just like, well, when you're making shows every week, it's got to be good enough.
Yep, sometimes you're going to see Frank's bald head popping out the bottom, and you got to just move on to the next one.
Gonzo then does a brief promotion for Channel 10 Australia in 1983, promoting The Muppet Show, being in syndication there. And I think the most exciting thing in here is that Gonzo gets to do a Kermit impression. He doesn't try that hard.
Hate it doing it, yeah.
Yeah, he reads the note from Kermit and then says, oh, right, I'm also supposed to say this. Yay!
I really like that the other Muppets respect Kermit so much, but there have been multiple times when they're like, if they're gonna make fun of him, that's like the one thing he does that they're all like, that's so stupid, dude.
I'm wondering if, I know we've seen Gonzo appear. Was it like on a This Is Your Life thing? Like there's like been a couple times we've seen him just like off doing weird things on his own.
Right.
But I'm wondering if they were in Australia to do Uncle Traveling Matt segments.
Oh.
And maybe that's why Dave Goles was in Australia, is to record some of those with the kangaroos and everything and the boomerang segments. And they were like, well, you got Gonzo here. We should do some Gonzo work.
Yeah. I bet that is it.
These are the kinds of things that I think they do more and more of through the years, is just these little TV segments of Muppets doing things that really is going to mess up our podcast as we get into the 90s and the 2000s, when it's just like, oh, God, we have 30 Kermit promotions for Channel 7 to watch this month. Sam, how do we talk about these?
We'll have to pioneer a new way to do a recap podcast, Matt.
Yeah, it'll be 5 hours of watching TV promos. We then get our brief glimpse at the Art of the Muppets Museum exhibit. And as Sam said earlier, the most exciting thing in here is to get to see the cross-section of Junior Gorg with a Rob Mills mannequin inside of it.
Yeah. I wonder if it was really modeled after him, like they say. Like if they
Maybe it's like the height. I don't know how much it looked like him, but
right.
to fit in the suit, they probably based it a little bit off of him.
Had to be the right, yeah.
The Fraggles are there as well. And I think one of the coolest things that, to me, if I was going to get to go to this exhibit, which the closest thing we got was the Imagination Unlimited or whatever it was called exhibit that they had in Seattle several years ago that we both got to go to, thankfully. But what it didn't have was an interactive doozer exhibit.
That would have been awesome. Push buttons, make a doozer elevator go up and down.
Yeah, I love that shit at museums.
Yeah, me too.
The Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago has this gigantic train set that you can like push buttons and make the trains run and move around and stuff. And I am a button pusher if I'm at a museum. I'm going to push all those buttons.
I love pushing a button. You're right. Pushing buttons, great. Well, that's one of the things I like most about Star Wars is all the buttons that they're pushing all the
A lot
time.
of clicky buttons.
That's
what I like about the Star Wars land in Disneyland and Disney World is you can push a lot of those buttons.
Push all those clicky buttons.
The Millennium Falcon ride, just click, 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 click.
Terrific.
Well, speaking of space, it's time
This guy.
for Star Boppers. This is the show that Jim really wanted to make about alien creatures loosely based on Freudian ideas who are going to be puppets in front of computer-generated backdrops.
Right.
The character designer, Ron Muick, he's the one who talked previously that he was basically hired, he thought, to start working on Labyrinth. And then Jim was like, before you do that, though, you want to design some aliens for me?
Yeah.
But apparently each group of the three characters were supposed to inhabit a spaceship that was their body. And then these characters embodied the mind of each body. And the Freudian principles of ego, superego, and id were represented by the three characters. So each ship would have a captain, a navigator, and a stoker.
Right.
So we don't see anything beyond Cosmo Bopper in this. We hear two off-screen characters. And apparently there would be multiple groups of these three archetype kind of characters, I guess, fighting in space?
Or
Unclear.
just talking to each other? I don't know.
Hey, you
if
over
I
there
got,
in your spaceship, how's it going?
If I got in this tape back in the 80s, I'd be like, we just want to make Fraggle Rock again? I don't know. I don't know if I would have bought this, probably, if I was the head of a TV station or whatever.
I mean, nobody did, so I think you're on the right side of that one.
And I think I would have said, build the other two puppets so I can see what they look like. This is nuts.
Well, I think the whole thing is a bit too chaotic to appreciate. Like, there's not many jokes happening here. There's just like a lot of yelling back and forth with two characters we can't see arguing.
Yeah.
And I think the computer backgrounds maybe would have helped it a little bit. As Jim notes, those are not in place yet. But I think that might have actually ended up being more limiting than freeing because they get to do fun, cool backgrounds, but you're not going to be able to do camera moves and change your camera up that much when you have just the stationary background. It's not like they have the technology that The Mandalorian has these days where it's going to follow you. It's going to be a stationary 3D backdrop.
Right. It's basically you have a matte painting. There's not really any difference.
It just looks 3D and cool in a way that nothing else did in the mid-'80s. So I applaud their efforts to get into CGI. And obviously, the same company that he worked with to develop the show is the same company who will go on to make the CGI owl for the beginning of Labyrinth. So they work together. And obviously, we have Muppet Vision 3D with Waldo being the ultimate CGI character and that everyone loves for the Muppets. So, yeah, and with the Jim Henson Hour as well, Jim gets to play with CGI characters. So I'm glad he got to do some of that because you don't necessarily equate the mid-'80s and early 90s all the time with a lot of CGI because it was such in its early days. So, you know, unfortunately with him passing away so early in the 90s, it is nice that he got to have a brief run-in with some CGI because I think nowadays if he could see the like digital puppetry they're doing on like Sid the Science Kid, he'd be like, fuck yes, this rules.
I knew it. I knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Waldo lives.
All that being said, I think that Cosmo Bopper is like one of the most impressive puppets I've seen. He looks so real.
He kind of looks like a space chicken.
Yeah, but the way his eyes move and his
I don't like his
brows
eyes.
can furrow. Oh, I don't necessarily like the design of his eyes, but they just look real. He looks so real.
Yeah, I guess he does have that Fraggle Rock quality to him where I did not for a second think about the puppetry going into him.
Mm-hmm. It's a little weird to hear Jim's voice coming out of him, I think. I think that's just such a like well-known voice that to have a very radical new character like that with Jim's voice is a little bit like, huh, this is maybe a little stodgy or something. But I don't know. I would like to see. I'd be more interested in a better pitch than this. Like I would like to see what he really had in mind because it sounds bad, but I want to see how bad it was.
It also, he reminds me, and I think this is just like the look, the eyes especially, remind me of like a Disney audio animatronic.
Mm-hmm. It looks kind of like those new Mickey Mouses that can blink and move their mouths. You know, like the new costume.
Right, like the new suits that people wear.
Right.
Yeah, and just kind of has that like buzzy look.
The show sounds exactly like that buzzy thing. What was that show?
The one is the Cranium Command.
Cranium Command, exactly.
Where they're like, it's basically Inside Out.
And they have the spaceship, and it's the kid's head, and it's the different emotions he has. Right.
But yeah, I don't get anything from this Star Boppers clip that makes me go, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't get to make that show.
That would have just been one more thing for us to have to watch.
Well, the last two things we watched this week as part of this catch-up episode are a couple of PSAs, one for the National Wildlife Federation and the other one for the Swimathon. The Swimathon, I think we mostly talked about at this point. It's kind of weird. It's kind of cute because Scooter's there in his little swim trunks and his goggles.
It's always, I love when you see a non-standard Muppet show up. Like, Scooter's pretty standard, but it's not like Jim. It's like, when it's like a weird little guy, it's almost more realistic to like have Scooter like, it makes sense that Scooter's like a dork who likes swimming and he's like excited about Olympic swimmers, you know, and to see his heroes and be like, I want to swim like you guys.
Yeah, it would like, I'm trying to imagine the version of this today. Could you imagine like a PSA of the Muppets happening today and Scooter's the Muppet they choose to feature? There is not a freaking chance Scooter gets highlighted by himself.
Nope. They're running on. They're just like, yeah, they're not established enough to do anything but take out the heavy hitters generally.
Yeah, and it's usually Eric Jacobson doing something at Walt Disney World these days is what we get. It's like, here's Fozzie, here's Animal. Like,
which I do like. I don't
mind at all, but it is, you know, we're not getting a lot of Scooter these days.
Yeah.
But that's why they, you know, I wish they would bring back some of those YouTube shorts, even if it was just like the weekly wisdom things they used to do where Uncle Deadly would come out or Janice and Animal would come out. And I feel like you could, obviously there's budgets and all that stuff involved, but like you could film like 60 of those in one day and spread it out over a year.
Yeah, that's true.
But like recently, you know, they did the one with Robin for the May the 4th where he was talking about what Star Wars was. So those things can definitely work. And I'm glad to see their YouTube channel is up and running again. They just recently did the Muppets Mayhem go to the Spotify headquarters. That was like,
I really liked that. I thought it was really fun.
No, it was very good. And again, it's like, you know, using that YouTube channel regularly is something I would love to see them do. But yeah, the National Wildlife Federation PSA is just a cute little Kermit and Robin on a hike talking about how great forests are.
They're homes to animals.
Mm-hmm.
Give us wood as well. Love to see an uncle and nephew taking a hike together.
Are you prepared for this episode to be over, Sam?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. This was so much stuff.
We watched like 20 different things this week.
Yeah.
Almost 3 hours of stuff.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
We're only in 1984, Sam, so we've got quite a ways to go. But for now...
And you said it's going to be like this more, right? More little bits.
I mean, yeah, especially once the internet exists, because then they start doing lots of short clips everywhere, so...
Stupid internet.
Never gonna be done with this podcast. But for now, it's time for our Muppet of the Week. And this week's Muppet of the Week is Sam's favorite sexy dog, Afghan Hound.
Oh no, there couldn't possibly be anything about the Afghan Hound.
You'd be correct, which is why I attached her to an episode where we had so much else to say about other things. Afghan Hound is the female Afghan Hound that Sam thinks is the most attractive of the Muppet dogs.
I stand by it.
Afghan Hound debuted in the 1978 Elton John episode of the second season of The Muppet Show and would appear in at least 18 episodes of The Muppet Show, a lot of times just hanging out in the background. but she will go on to appear sporadically in Muppet projects like Muppets Tonight, and appeared as recently as the Muppets at the O2 in 2018. So Afghan Hound still around. Back in the Muppet Show days, she was performed by Louise Gold, and the only performer I could find post-Muppet Show listed specifically was Alice Dinian, who performed her in the 2011 Muppets movie, the Jason Segel one, where she's manning the phones at the telethon. And guess what, Sam? That's it.
Wow, okay.
She has a Muppet character encyclopedia page, but it pretty much says exactly what I just told you. So
She wasn't even in Muppet Christmas Carol or nothing, huh?
I don't think so.
Wow.
So yeah, there's unfortunately not much to say about Afghan Hound that hasn't already been said. But what would you rate Afghan Hound? Taking maybe the attractiveness out of your rating as like maybe an overall character rating.
So, well, first of all, it's a great puppet. It's a classic looking dog. I mean, dog Muppets are already the best kind of Muppets, but this is a great dog Muppet. Also, a lot of my attraction to Afghan Hound is based on how much of a crush I have on Louise Gold. So I do have to separate myself from that aspect of it. Afghan Hound, just in terms of how great a Muppet it is, I think 7.5. That's kind of low even, but I'm going to stick with it because, you know, she wasn't even in Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's a bit generous for how much she has done. I was going to give her a 5.
That's fine, man, and I'm okay with that.
All right. Well, Sam, did you have time to enjoy any non-Muppet things this week?
I did. Last night I went to see Asteroid City, the newest Wes Anderson film.
Yeah.
It was great. He's back,
Nice.
baby. I mean, he wasn't ever really gone, but I didn't love French Dispatch. I wanted to love it. But this one is just like, it's so beautiful and so like, they're like in the same city set the whole time. And the set is just like, I want to go live there. So
I watched
bad.
some behind the scenes of them making that city. And yeah, it looks
I need to look
amazing.
at that. It's just like the atmosphere, the vibe is perfect. And it's like, I don't know. It's so funny too. It was like surprisingly funny. And it's also like really meta in a way that I can't even talk about without spoiling it. But there's a huge chunk of it that the trailers don't remotely touch at all.
Good.
Which is like,
yeah, no,
whoa.
we recently did, which I've talked about definitely throughout episodes in the podcast. We did a Wes Anderson rewatch of all of his movies. And I was surprised by some of the ones that I didn't like as much upon a second watch. And then I really did like some that I thought I hated.
Interesting.
So yeah, French Dispatch was one that I strongly disliked the first time I watched it. But the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, actually, I think I love this now.
Yeah, I think now that I know what to expect out of it, I would like it way better.
That is exactly what happened, because the first time I watched French Dispatch, I did not know the format of it and how it was broken up like a magazine, and that made me not be able to connect to it really well. And the second time, knowing what I was getting into, I loved it. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't get that one.
I'm
What's
excited,
another
though.
one that you loved?
I mean, I still like Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore and all those. Life Aquatic and Moonrise Kingdom are the two that surprised me at how much I didn't like them.
Interesting. Okay.
Moonrise Kingdom especially, I remember really, really enjoying when it came out. And then watching it this most recent time, I was just like, I'm quite bored of this movie.
Yeah.
And it just was not my favorite. But yeah, I'm excited to see it because I've heard so many good things from people whose opinions I trust on things.
What about you?
A few things. I watched the first 2 episodes of the new season of The Bear, which are out on
still
Hulu.
good show?
Still good show. Very different, it feels like, this season.
Because he got a different kind of restaurant, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, so yes-ish. They're trying to like revamp the old restaurant. But the interesting thing is that the first season, I think I described it again, even on this podcast when I first started watching it, as like kind of a stressful show. It's a lot of people yelling at each other a lot. And that's still sort of there. But the vibe of the first season was like a lot of stressful, anxiety-ridden things. And this one is so much funnier. They're like leaning into the humor and the light, like jokey part of it so much more than they did previously. That
Weird.
It feels like a different show a little bit, but still very good. And then I also watched the first 2 Twilight movies.
Oh, why?
We own the box set, and I've only ever seen the first 2, I think. And my wife, like, you know, grew up in the era where like she was the perfect age when those were coming out. And so has seen all of them multiple times. And so I was like, I've never seen this. And she like was in the mood to watch one of them. And I was like, I'll watch it with you. And now I feel like I'm invested and I'm going to have to watch all 5 of them.
Those movies are bad, but they're so fun to watch. They're so stupid.
It's a perfect sort of turn your brain off and just sit there and enjoy the really, really weird filmmaking choices that are
the last 2. Have you seen the last 2?
No, I think I've literally only seen the first 2.
The last 2 are, because it's like a 2-parter.
Right.
The very final movie is just perfect. I can't wait until you watch it.
That's the thing is like I feel like I thought I had seen most of these movies, and then we watched New Moon, and I was like, the last half hour of that movie like wasn't familiar to me, and I'm like, I think I've seen this once ever before. And this is as much Twilight knowledge as I have in my brain is these 2 movies. So I don't think I've seen anything else aside from those first 2.
Is the second one the one at the end where they drive all the way to Italy and they talk to
they don't drive to Italy. they
drive
fly
to
on a plane.
And they go talk to the vampire Illuminati and they're just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
See you later.
Kinda, yeah. But yeah, no, it's a fascinating series, I think, is a way to
really a glimpse
talk about
into
it.
What it was like when we were growing up,
Well, specifically, I worked at Hot Topic when those movies were coming out. So we were selling all of the Team Jacob and Team Edward T-shirts. We were the headquarters for Twilight merchandise. And so that was my like only real familiarity with the series was watching that chaos unfold in the store and seeing all the like replicas of, whose jewelry and all this stuff we were selling. And the other connection I have is that me and Bella Swan had the exact same birthday.
Oh, Matt, congratulations.
We were born on the exact same day.
Wow. She's accomplished a bit more in her life than you have.
Wow. 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 Well, that's enough about Twilight for now. It'll come up for sure again on this podcast. But for now, I need to tell you that next week, it's time for us to start a brand new series. Because next
time for that
time,
already?
it is time, Sam. We will be watching and discussing the first 3 episodes of the 1984 animated series, Muppet Babies.
I'm so scared.
The episodes we are discussing will be Noisy Neighbors, Dental Hijinks, and Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Dark.
I don't like the sound of dental hijinks. That sounds like something an evil clown would do to you.
All of those are available over to watch at archive.org. We'll be making sure to post the links to those when we're watching them. But that's not all, because we will also be watching a couple of clips showing off the Muppet Show on Tour, which starts in September of 1984 as well. We unfortunately don't have like a ton of clips of it, but we do have a rap from Fozzie Bear.
Oh, Matt, don't say those words
It's
to me.
So bad. The 80s are here, Sam, and they're not going to let us ignore them
It
because
hurts me to hear that.
we have so much 80s stuff coming up in the world of the Muppets and Sesame Street that it's going to be uncomfortable.
And it's Frank rapping?
It is Frank rapping as Fozzie.
No. Okay. I'll be brave.
But that'll be next time. So for now, we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to kermitmentstuff.com to check out all of our brand new Kermitment merch. And you can also email us at mail@kermitment.com if you have any links to any other unseen, hidden Muppet things, because, we'll do another one of these catch-up episodes at some point in the future. I am sure we will miss some stuff. Some new stuff will be unearthed. So if you want to share any of that with us that you come across, mail@kermitment.com is the place to do that. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at KermitmentPod, which is where we share the links to the things we are going to watch so you can watch along with us. And you can follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.